Okay, so this morning we would like to share with you our testimony as a family that is giving the life to the Lord and serving like a missionary. So I hope I have words enough to explain to you clearly our story, and that you can understand the power of God working in our lives, the lives of people that are not worthy to do this and to live in this way. I didn't come from a family, Seventh-day Adventist family, and I just knew this message. I just knew Jesus. Come to know this Jesus when I was 16 years old. Who here has 16 years old? You? Okay. And you too. Yes, that was the age that I learned about Jesus and all the Bible. And it was a big change in my life. And at this point, I just would like to give my life to Jesus and to serve Him, to live to Him all the time. But I don't know how to do this. I didn't know how to do this. And then I started to visit the church. I was baptized, and I was desiring to do everything that was possible to do to help the church, to help the young people. And I started to sing. I learned to sing the hymns, and I did a group of young people to sing and go to other places to sing about Jesus. And we spent a lot of time practicing and singing to the people about the love of God. But I just was thinking that it was not enough. I have to do something more. I had a regular work, and the time that I was free, I spent to the Lord. But I just have a feeling that I have to spend, to give all my life, all my time to Jesus. But I didn't know how to do this.
Well, contrary to my husband, I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist home. My parents always worked for the church. My grandparents were already Seventh-day Adventists, and they always worked. My grandfather was a pioneer teacher in Brazil. He started many of the Seventh-day Adventist schools in Brazil. So I just grew up in church. That was all I knew, and I went to all our schools, academies. We're both from Brazil, by the way, so we grew up in Brazil. And so, it was just normal being a Seventh-day Adventist for me. I don't believe I really had a personal experience with God, except that's all I knew, and that's what I wanted to be. Although I didn't have a very personal relationship with God. And I remember in college, I went to Columbia Union College in Maryland, and I was studying music education, and in one of my classes, it was a special education class, we learned how to deal with different people, like different students. If we had a student that was blind or handicapped or had some learning disabilities, and we would talk about that, how would I relate to students who were very different from me? And I remember this teacher had an exercise that really, I didn't realize at the time how much it would touch my life. But there was a list of people, different kinds of people. A blind, a handicapped, a non-Christian, or a Catholic, Muslim, an atheist. And then on the bottom, there were several questions. How would you feel comfortable relating to this person? Would you mind being their friend? Would you mind being their neighbor? Would you mind marrying them? And when I was in college, I thought that life was just beautiful and I wanted to be the best person. So I answered yes to all of those questions, even marrying an atheist. And I remember, of course, that wasn't really what my parents taught me and what I learned, but that little seed stayed in my mind. Well, life went on. And I didn't know a lot of the principles that I know now and that I teach my daughters now. So I was involved with many different young men. And I remember my first boyfriend was a good Seventh-day Adventist. My second boyfriend was a Seventh-day Adventist, but he never got involved in church. My third boyfriend was not a Seventh-day Adventist. His father used to be, and he was not. Do you see a trend here? Well, the next one was an atheist. And I just, I'm telling you this because as good Seventh-day Adventists, sometimes we are in church, but we don't have a personal connection with God. And little things can influence our lives and take us so far away from God that we don't even notice. And I almost got married to that young man. And praise the Lord, he took me out of it. He even got baptized for my sake because I said, well, I'm not going to marry you if you're not a Seventh-day Adventist. That doesn't really help, And he got baptized, but he didn't change his heart. So I had faced a lot of trials as an adult already because of the wrong choices that I made and because I didn't have a true relationship with God. But praise the Lord, he opened my eyes in time. And when you're a little older, and I didn't marry, we got married when we were 30, right? So when you're getting older, especially us young ladies, you kind of feel, oh, I'm being left behind. I need to get married. I don't want to get old. And so those were my concerns. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I didn't trust the Lord, and I just trusted my own feelings, and I got involved with the wrong people. And even though the Lord took me out of that relationship, and soon after I met my husband, was going to be my husband, I'm very happy that the Lord did that in my life. Because, at the moment I turned to him and I asked him for his guidance, he showed me a much better way. And, maybe you are right now, I don't know you, but maybe you are making some wrong choices and it seems like you're just getting away and away and away from God. No matter where you are, if you turn to God, he's going to bring you back. And as soon as I knew that I was with the right person, someone who loved the Lord, who had a heart for mission just like me, life changed completely and I found happiness in God. So when I met my husband, we were both concerned about not getting married, right? And we were both wanting to serve the Lord.
Yeah, it's important that when you have a desire to serve the Lord, you have to find someone that has the same desire. Because if not, this not will be possible. It's impossible for a couple that we divided in this vision for the future to work together in the same way.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. Throughout, all these years, I was very involved in church. I was not away from the church. I was very involved in music, and, teaching the kids, the choir, and with the youth program. But it was kind of like a double life. I was very involved in church, but out there, I was really not involved with God. And one of the things that, an idea that came to my mind when I got involved with these people who were not walking with the Lord is that I was strong enough and I would be able to change them. And that's a great mistake that we make, We can never say, I'm strong enough that I will change him and that he's going to become a Christian. That's not how it works. Because we don't have any strength in ourselves. So whenever you start looking for someone to be your partner in life, look for someone who's going to strengthen you and not someone that is weak. It wasn't him, I'm just pointing at him, but it wasn't him, remember. not someone that was weak, and that you feel that you're strong enough to take him to God. And when I met him, I was interested in him especially for that reason, because I saw that he was a young man who loved the Lord, and he could help me to become stronger in my relationship with God.
So when I was about 18 years old, when I went to the church, I think the first time, and then I saw a lot of beautiful girls. Wow. So just in the beginning, I started a relationship with one girl. She was so fine. But, you know, I didn't know how the Lord would like to be part of my choice on this area. And then in the school, I got a friend. He was not an Seventh-day Adventist guy, but he was very Christian. And we started to talk a lot, and he told me that he had a desire to be a missionary too, and the girl that he has a relationship, her girlfriend, his girlfriend, she doesn't have this desire to be a missionary, and he was so sad, and he knows that this will not work if he wants to be a missionary, and he decided to break up the relationship, and he was so sad because he loved that girl, but he knew that the Lord will help him to find someone that he would love, and would be a blessing to him. And I started to talk, wow, I didn't know that the Lord Jesus would like to be part of this in my life, to choose someone to be with me in the mission in my life and to be my partner. Yeah. So I started to pray, and I just finished the relationship that I had at this moment, because I knew that it was not in the plan of God. And then I started to pray that the Lord can help me to find someone that will be a blessing to me, to the ministry, and to the people, and to my family, to everyone, and to the ministry too. And then just passed 1 year, and the Lord didn't answer me. And I was so sad because I was alone. And then passed 2 years, and I didn't have an answer. And 3 years, and I was still alone. But I was praying to the Lord that, Lord, give me wisdom to understand what I need to look for. How to recognize that this person is with you and is connected with you, and we can become together missionaries for you. And then past 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and I'm still just praying and studying the Bible, trying to understand what's the desire of the Lord for us to find someone. And 7 years passed, and 8 years, and I just started to think maybe I will be like Paul. You know, that some people that the Lord just say you have to stay single. And it's not a problem to be single, because a person that's single can serve the Lord in several ways, and it will be easier sometimes to serve the Lord like a single person. But I just remember that the Lord said in the beginning, it's not good that the man stay alone. He would like that we can find someone to help us and to be with us. And I start to understand that the family, now I understand better than later, before, But I start to understand that the family is the most powerful tools of evangelism that the Lord has. And then I continue my prayer for 10 years. And one day I was sitting in the church in one program, and one girl just entered in the church, and I just saw she walking and going to the front, and I saw her back. And the time that I saw her back, I feel in my heart, this is my wife. I don't know how, it's not a very loud voice, just in my heart, this is your wife. But I didn't know her. Do you know this is possible to happen? Sometimes I just talk with people. I don't think the Lord works in this way. I think He gives this decision to us to do. But I understand now better than before that the Lord would like to be part of this, like He did with Adam. Do you think that the Lord presents to Adam, okay, here's Eve, here's Mary, here's Janet, here's Susan, you can choose now. Was like this?
No.
To Adam? Why was not this? The Lord knew very well Adam, right? And He knows what we need and what will be good for us. That's why God made Eve to Adam, because He knew Adam, right?
Yeah, I just want to add that it doesn't mean that there's just one person for you in the world, but it means that God knows who is the best person for you. And if by any chance we don't get to marry that one person, God will still bless us. And He's still going to work with us. But if we trust, Him to help us make that choice, He's going to show us the best option that will help us in building our own character. It's not just the best option. It's the best option, and sometimes we might not even think it's the best option, but it's the best option for us. Because in a relationship we see our own mistakes, and we get to work our character traits in the likeness of Jesus. We can grow in the likeness of Jesus.
Yeah, this is important. If you have a wrong choice, maybe, there's hope. If you surrender our relationship to God, God can make anything in a blessing to us and to others. So we just start to understand that the plans of God is always better than our plans. And if we choose to follow these plans, we will be happy. And then we start a relationship with my wife now, and I just know that the Lord put us together to be a missionary. And we just, after our wedding, we just went to Africa like a missionary, and we spent our honeymoon in Africa like a missionary, right?
It's interesting because I like the idea of becoming a missionary, of going to a foreign country. I had no idea how the Lord would, provide that in my life. And we were engaged to be married during our courtship, and about 6 months before our wedding, we received a visit from a pastor who was a missionary in Africa, and he was his former pastor, church pastor. And he called my husband. He asked my husband to go with him to Africa as a missionary. He had called you before, right?
Yeah.
I think 1 year before he had called my husband, and my husband said, "No, I don't think it's time." And he didn't know me yet. No, that was more than a year before. Anyway, so when he came, this time he came, he called my husband, and my husband was really touched. Now, we were 6 months away from our wedding, so I was getting ready. You know, we're thinking about a new home and our furniture and things. You know, we're starting to plan, and we had even purchased a few things. And then separately, this pastor came and asked me, invited me to go to Africa as a missionary. And I didn't know that he had already talked to my husband, but I felt that that call really came from God, and I said, yes, I would like to go. And then later on, talking to my husband, you know, I came to find out that he had made the same call, and he had also said yes. And then he was like, well, but you didn't know that I had said yes. How come you said yes? What if I decided that I didn't want to go? And I said, well, I don't know, but I felt that I should go anyways. So that was one way that we saw that the Lord was guiding us. And many times when you're married, you know, you don't know which way to go, or you don't know how to make a certain decision. That's one of the ways that God answers our prayers. We can ask, Lord, please confirm the same ideas in my husband's heart. You know, and that's the best way, because then both of you know that it came from God.
It's very important that after I have that feeling in my heart, I have to know her before I have a decision. I have to spend time together to see, yes, this really the Lord way to us. So we went to Africa, and we learned a lot there. We just start our life as missionaries thinking that, well, now we're going to serve the Lord, and everything will be good, fine. We have to do a lot of things for the people and help them and show Jesus. But we just started discovering that the Lord put us far away in a country that we didn't know very well, and far from our families and alone, just to start to understand that we need help. It's so funny because it's different than our plans. We went to help, and the Lord just was taking us to we understand that we need help.
Well, we were in the country of Senegal, West Africa. It's a Muslim country. About 95% of the population is Muslim, and 5% is Christian and their tribal religions. And by Christian, I mean Catholic and any other kind of Christian religion. At the time, our church, Seventh-day Adventist Church, had about 40 members in the whole country. It's very small. At the same time, Senegal is not a very, it's not very violent like some other countries. It's a pretty peaceful country. But in some of these countries, it's very easy to start a war. You know, just one little thing that happens, and all of a sudden people are, having a war. Especially in the south of the country, they were having like some tribal wars, and one of the missionaries that we worked with was shot. Praise the Lord, he survived, and he still carries a bullet inside him to this day. But it wasn't a very easy place to live. The culture was so different, and as soon as you get there, people know you're a foreigner, and you are treated differently. And we learn how to look at people and love people no matter what they look like or what their culture is like. We have a lot of opportunities to work with children over there. There was a group of boys, they're called the Talibé. Have you ever heard of the Taliban? Nowadays when you think about that, you think of the terrorists. The little boys who go and they learn about the Muslim culture, and they become Muslims, and they are trained so that one day they are willing to die for their religion, for the sake of their religion. So these were little boys that were taken from their families. Actually, the families gave them away because they were very poor, didn't have a way to raise them. So many of the boys we worked with were these little boys. And it's just, when you look at one of those boys, sometimes we would see boys like they were 3 and 4-year-olds walking by themselves on the streets, and they were given a little tin can to collect money to bring back to their chief. And they had like an amount of money they had to collect every day, and if they didn't, they would get spanking, or they were hit. So sometimes they would come to us and they had bruises all over and they were hungry and crying. And it's just, a lot of things came to our heart as we experienced, had this experience with these little boys. Especially that, we are so blessed in this country, and even in our country, Brazil, we are so blessed. We have so many things. Things are so easy for us. And when you go to a country where people have nothing, they have very little, and they still are, sometimes when they became Christians, they were willing to suffer. They were cast out from their families. We met this young man he was in theology, right, school, and his dad was so angry and he became a Christian that he hit him right in his mouth, and he broke his front teeth. And he became a pastor. And later he went back to his home and he ministered to his family. So we learned that our life is very easy, and sometimes we take things for granted. We don't value what we have, the freedom we have, and all the blessings that God gives us.
And the other thing that we just discovered there is that we didn't have the relationship with God in the way that we would have. Should have, yeah. And then we just start to work with the Lord without the connection with the Lord. And sometimes we do this. We work for the Lord and we don't know the Lord. We do a lot of things in the church and we don't know Jesus. And we work without power. And that was our condition there. We were in a mission field and without Jesus. And we had to understand that we have to be connected with Him. We didn't have time in the morning when we got up to spend time with Jesus and to make our devotional. We didn't have this in our life. And we just wake up and went to the work. And then we start to learn about this. Wow, we don't have Jesus in our life. We're doing things for Him, but without Him. And then the Lord impressed our hearts that we need to be connected with Him.
Well, we spent 1 year in West Africa, and then we came to the United States, and we lived here for a while. Then we had our daughters, and now we were a family. And the Lord brought us here. We had a privilege to study. My husband studied a little bit more. And then we worked for the church. We worked at the General Conference office. And working there, it was really a pleasure to see how God, we were out in Brazil, then we were in West Africa, now we were here, and we could see how God is leading His church all over the world. And sometimes, especially if you come from a small church, you might not feel, might not have that sense of how big our church is, the Adventist movement is, and that God is guiding. My husband worked at the audiovisual department, so he would participate in all the meetings that the pastors from all over the world would have. They would come and have these meetings, and how God was leading, so that all the churches keep faithful to the same doctrines, the same principles. Of course, we know that there are a lot of differences between people, but somehow, if you go to a church, in West Africa or in India, anywhere in the world, it's a Seventh-day Adventist church, just like our church here. So we have this unity, and it's really amazing to see how God is protecting our church. Now, we still had the desire to go back to some mission field while we were here, and after we had our daughters. But then came the question, how can you be a missionary as a family? Especially for me, a woman. It's very easy for us to get involved in our work, even our mission work, and neglect our children, our families. And I went through that. I wanted to work so much for the Lord that many times I would neglect my daughters. I wouldn't be as caring for them as I was, for the people I was working with or I was ministering to. So that's a very important question that, young ladies need to think about as you choose your, as you study and you choose what you're going to do in life. Because if you choose to be a mother, that's your first priority. That has to be your priority. Somehow you have to fit the other things into your life around your children, but don't fit your children around your job or around even your mission work.
Yeah, and for the man, it's the same. The Lord didn't ask for us to do all the things. And I was in a situation that I was working too much for the Lord, that I became sick. And I get in the point that I was in a hospital. And at this point, I just understand the Lord didn't ask us to do all the things. He asked us to pray for more workers and do what's possible for you with temperance, right? And I know that I have to do some changes in our lives because of my family that I'm going to lose in this way. I was going to lose in this way because of my health, because of my spiritual life too. And then studying the Bible and studying the other books of the church, Spirit of Prophecy, I just start to understand the lifestyle that the Lord would like to have to us, to give it to us. And then we have a desire to move from the city to a country place. So just start a different life, still working to the Lord, but in different way. But we didn't have any chance to go to the country because we don't have the funds, yeah, to move, to buy some area, some place. And then we started to pray to the Lord about this. Lord, if you want that we make some changes in our life, please let this be possible in some way. And what happened?
Well, we had a friend. We were still living in Maryland and working at the church headquarters. And we had a friend, and she said, well, I'm going to Brazil, and I'm going to buy a property in Brazil. And, we were very close friends. And whenever she came back, we saw her again. We're like, so how is it going? Have you found your place? And at the same time, we were having the desire to go to Brazil. And we were starting to look for places. Where are we going? And we went on, on the internet, you have the Google Earth. So we would go to Brazil and go all over Brazil looking for places. And there was this area of Brazil that, we really thought it was beautiful. It had mountains.
But we see pictures.
Yeah, we have never been there. We've never seen it. But we saw pictures of it, and we would go there, on Google Earth and look at the different places. We started looking for land to purchase or rentals out in the country. So after a few months, our friend came back and she said, well, I bought a property. And I need someone to stay in my property, to live there for me. And when she told us where the property was, it was the same place, it was this place that we were looking at on Google Earth. Wow. Now, we didn't have the money, not even to buy the plane tickets. to go. And we had no idea what we were going to do there. So we just started praying. And I had a notebook, and I remember I wrote down all the things that we needed for our move. Lord, you have to provide this, you have to help us with this, with that, and that. And one by one, God started answering our prayers. My sister-in-law started working for Delta Airlines, and one day she calls us and she goes, I have plane tickets for you to go to Brazil. You just pay a little bit, you know. And then, what else? Everything. He needed equipment.
Yeah. I didn't know what to do when I moved to Brazil. So I just think maybe I can go on to work with the Lord with some audiovisual productions. And the Lord provide all the equipment that we need. And maybe I don't have time to say all this experience, but the problem is that I couldn't find persons that can support us in this change in our lives, because the people just think, you are crazy. You're going with your children and your wife to a place in the middle of nowhere.
You don't have a job.
You don't have a job anymore. You don't have money, income coming all the months. How you could survive? But we just was understanding the call of the Lord to us as family. I know that was crazy for the people, but for us, it was making sense that we need to go because we need to know the Lord.
Yeah, the difference between making a foolish choice in life and making a hard choice when you have God's approval, you know, it's something very important to understand. Because when our choices are based on, you know, just our feelings, we can get into trouble. But when we know that's what the Lord said, that's what the Lord counseled us to do, and we see Him guiding us in our lives, you know, and many, I mean, we don't have time, but many little things happen. Like I had both girls already, so I had stopped working outside of home, and I had some jobs that I would do at home, from home, like translation and things like that. And my husband had a few media jobs for the church. He would be.
We can do from there.
So we could do. It's not like we were, you know, just going on a totally new adventure, and we had no idea, and we would depend on people to support us. But our income would go, you know, it would lower considerably compared to what we had before. So, but we were sure that we were doing the Lord's will. Even though it was crazy for everyone else, we were sure that we were doing His will. And the thing that made us, you know, have assurance in God is that the fact that it would be the best thing for us as a family. It was not, you know, a selfish choice. Oh, this is going to be good for me, or
it will be hard for us.
It wouldn't be easy, but it would be the best place for our daughters to be raised. It would be the best place for us. We were having some issues in our marriage, so we needed some time alone. And when we moved to that place, far from a lot of things, we had neighbors, of course. We had a small town where we were ministering to, but we began to experience more time with God. And more dependence upon God, because many times we didn't have everything we wanted. We had everything we needed, but not everything that we wanted. And our faith was not as strong as we, you know, sometimes we think it is. So we had to depend upon God many times for His provisions.
Yes, and I remember one time we have a mission trip to do, and we have a small car, an old car, but was working well, but the tires was so, how can I say, used, and we have to change the tires for this trip, and we didn't have money for this. And then we just start to pray, Lord, we have to do this trip, this help, to help this travel, to help the people and to do the mission, but we don't have money to change this tire. So one Sabbath we were in a small group there, helping them, and one visitor from a big city, São Paulo, came to visit this group, and he saw our car. And he talked with someone, I saw their car, and they need new tires. So I sent from the big city, São Paulo, new tires, 4 tires to them, and the money for they can change, okay? And when this lady told us this, wow, the Lord's providing this for us, to our trip. The Lord's so good. And then the tire came. And I planning to went to the city, the small city that was close to the area that we were living, to change this tire and make all the arrangement for the trip, for the travel. And we changed the tires. And when we went back to our home, that was in a mountain, the top of a mountain, far from the city, the car has hit some rock, big rock, hit the bottom of the car and broke the, how can I say, the muffler in a way that was not able to repair. And when I saw that, I was, oh no, Lord, why this happened with us? And I started to complain with the Lord, and I forgot the blessing before. And then I just told my family, okay, let's go home, let's sleep, and tomorrow I go back to the city to try to solve this. But I didn't have money. I just have money for the gas to make a travel, the trip. And then I went back, and I remember that all the old tires that I got, that was in my car, I got this to bring back to my home to use in the garden. Maybe we can use this, in the garden. And I was thinking, okay, I go with this and I use in the garden. Then I put in the back the trunk, the tires. And all the time that I tried to remove the tires, the old tires from the trunk, something got my attention, and I didn't do this. And then at the time that I was going back to the city to fix the, how to say? The muffler, I just saw that the tire was still there, the old tire, and I started to complain, oh Lord, why they didn't take this out from my car? Now I'm carrying this again. And then I went to the city, and I got in one shop, and I asked for the guy, can you fix this to me? Maybe you can use this old one just to fix, because I don't have money to buy a new one. And he told me, no, it's not possible to repair this. You have to buy a new one. Okay, you have a shop in front here, you can go there, you can find. Then I went there and I asked, okay, do you have this muffler? Yes, and then he told me, yes, it's 200 reais, the money in Brazil. Okay, I don't have this money right now, but I have a work to do the next month, and I can pay you, because I have to get this now because I have a travel to do, a trip. So, could you sell this to me at this condition? I can leave it anything, maybe my document or anything for you, or make a check, and you hold this. And then he said, okay, you can take this, you make a check for me and I hold for you. And then I took this and I went back to the other shop to change this. And when the guy lifted up my car to change this muffler, I saw a car coming in the shop. And this shop was not a way that you're going just to pass. You have to go in the back of the shop to stop there. And this car came and stopped there, and a man came to my car and just touched the new tires. And he told me, "Oh, did you change your tires, right?" Yeah, I said, "Yes, I received this and I changed." "And what are you going to do with the old tires?" "Well, I'm planning to use in the garden because we can't use any anymore in the car. I want to buy them," he told me. Well, I don't know how it will cost. "And I can give you 200 reais. It's here in my pocket." He didn't see the money, just gave me 200. And when I saw that 200 is the same amount that I needed for this other part. And he told me, "Okay, when the car you come down, just put the tires in some place there. One day I come back to pick up this." And I look at the guy, the worker there, and say, "Do you know him?" "No, I never see him in this city. A small city, everybody knows, everybody there." And he just came to give the money. Wow, then I realized that the Lord was in control of our lives. And we need to not to be afraid. Because if you deliver our life, you surrender our life to the Lord, and learn how to be dependent on Him, He will be faithful to us. And a lot of things the Lord started to show us that He was with us in this moment, there alone in the wilderness.
Well, I'm sure that God didn't do this for us and the other things that He has done in our lives because we are special. Because we're not. We're not any more special than any of you here. Actually, we all are special for God. And He can give us gifts and He can do wonderful things in our lives simply because He loves us, not because of what we do for Him or because of how much we surrender to Him. Well, after we spent some time in the countryside of Brazil, 4 years actually, we got to know the lady who bought the property. She's a nurse. She still lives in the United States, and she started talking to us about doing some health programs, treatments like detox, natural programs in her property. We didn't know anything about it. We were, vegetarians, vegans, and we cared for our health, but we didn't know much about it. So she started training us, and we started helping her on these programs. And at that time, one of the jobs that we got translating was a book by Ellen White. It was a compilation from Ellen White's writing about medical evangelism work. And that book really touched our lives. And then we got to know a friend who was a worker at Wildwood Lifestyle Center in Georgia, and he invited my husband to come and study. So this is the group of students that graduated with my husband. And we started having a totally new understanding of God's plan for us all, because we are all called to be missionaries. And at that time, our daughters were a little older, and another very important area that God called our attention to was their education. How many of you here have read the book Education? Not as many as I would like to see. Well, I want you to know today that the book Education was written for all of us, young and old. It's not a book for teachers. It's not a book for parents alone. Okay? It's God's plan for us, for His children. All of us are called to be missionaries in one way or another. Maybe you're not going to be a full-time missionary, but God is calling you to be a missionary in whatever area you're working in. So that was God's call, and then I began to think more about those things. Well, if if we are missionaries, if we want our daughters to become missionaries, I need to educate them. I need to give them that kind of education that will prepare them to be missionaries. And we have
Sorry, we have a lot of pictures, but we're not so well.
yeah, every son, and that's a quote that I really like. It says, every son and daughter of God is called to be a missionary. Every. We are called to the service of God and our fellow men, and to fit us for this service should be the object of our education. So the way we are being trained today has a lot to do with the way we're going to be working for the Lord. You know, if I'm in an environment where my education is preparing me to be competitive with people, can I be a competitive missionary? No. Because I want to save people. I want to look at them as people that I love and I want to bring to God's kingdom. I don't want to compete with them for something else. So the education that the world offers us is completely different than the education that God wants to offer us. So if you're in, elementary school, high school, or college, start thinking about those things. Or if you're already a professional, how am I fulfilling God's plan as a missionary in what I do or in what I am studying right now? So that's something that became very important. And now as a family, we started traveling and we started doing different kinds of projects. And we would like to call our daughters to help us tell some of the things that we have been doing as missionaries. This was a trip that we made to Bolivia. We went to Bolivia for a week, and my husband had already been there for a month, and we participated in different meetings, doing any kind of thing. When that's the other thing about missions. When you're a missionary, you can be up front leading, or you can be on the back sweeping the floor, or you can be cleaning the bathroom. That's all part of the mission, and we shouldn't desire to do only the good stuff, the cleaning, the clean jobs. We should desire to do the cleaning jobs as well. So, Sarah, can you share with us some of the things that we do as a family?
We like to go to the churches, and we like to sing and sell our materials and preach to them. And other things that we do is cooking classes, healthy cooking classes.
Health Expo, just
like you had yesterday. Expo. We like to record some materials like CDs. To help the families. We did a scripture song CD with my family. It was really fun.
Well, as parents, we don't know. I mean, our children have the choice. They're going to grow up and they have a choice to do whatever they want to do, and we hope that they're going to seek the Lord's guidance. But and a lot of time, we keep talking to them all the time. What are you planning to do? What are your plans? How do you plan to do this for the Lord? And we've been talking to them about their projects for the future. Do you have any ideas, Sarah, what you want to do in the future?
I really don't know, what I'm gonna do for my life, but something that me and my sister we would like to do when we get to Brazil, because we really like to cook. So we want to make a small cafe, something like that, a vegan one, because we don't have vegan restaurants or cafes in Brazil. So.
In our town. Okay. And Anna had an experience recently, and I have to confess, as a mother, a lot of times I feel like I wonder if they're really thinking about these things, if they're really surrendering to God, if they're really giving their plans to the Lord. And not too long ago, Anna started sharing an idea with us that at first, even though it was an answer to my prayers, that it was showing that she really wanted to go into missions, I was a little afraid because it would require some sacrifice for my part. financial sacrifice and also being away from her for a month because she wanted to go to a mission program for a month. And I told her that I thought she wouldn't be able to go because we just didn't have the funds. And I was kind of hoping in my, my little faith that we wouldn't really get the funds so she wouldn't have to be away from me. But the Lord had other plans. What happened, Anna?
So I talked to a friend. She had gone to this program that's called Youth for Jesus last year. And I told her that I didn't really know how we would get the funds to go, but I really wanted to go. And she told me, well, you could try finding someone to sponsor you. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I told my mom, and I was like, oh, I have an idea. Why don't we make a fundraising project? And she's like, we'll never get that money. I was like, just for her to, like, have something to do. And I'm like, okay. So we made a fundraising project. We put it on Facebook, and like 10 minutes later, someone started donating like $50. And then in like 3 weeks, I got everything I needed, all the money I needed. I was like, okay, so yeah, it was about $900. I was like, okay, so I guess you're going, right? I was like, yeah. And I didn't really have a way of going there. I would either have to go by plane, but it was another like $300. So, and then we were talking to a friend in Brazil, and she said, oh, there's this family from Quebec, the Atwoods. Some of you know them. They're taking their daughter to YFJ. So maybe they can go to your house and take Anna with them. So we talked to them, and the Lord made everything go happen that they took me with them to Youth for Jesus. So that was a great blessing also. And then I got there, and I learned a lot of things. Our focus was evangelism. So we went door to door giving out glows and doing surveys, praying with people, or doing Bible studies and doing evangelistic series. And each one of us had to do something. I was one of the speakers, so I had to learn a lot about how to speak to other people up front and how to share God's word to them in that way.
Well, when we tell our testimony, sometimes people say, oh, you must have a lot of faith. No, we don't. Because even after, the Lord has done so many miracles in our lives, provided all our needs, when the next trial comes, sometimes we just, oh, Lord, what are we going to do? So we need to learn. Yeah, our faith is small. We need to learn. We really need to trust the Lord. Sometimes we feel like it feels like we think the Lord is there, and He's just looking at us to see if we're going to obey Him, but He doesn't really care about our happiness. But that's totally wrong. The Lord wants to give us many, many more gifts that we can, even start to imagine. He wants to provide not only what we need, but all the desires of our hearts. And we need to trust Him, and we need to love Him more and more because of His goodness to us.
And a program like this, a place like this, is a really blessing to us, because we just come here to listen how the Lord is taking care of other lives in the same way that it's planning to do with us. And so in the way that we passing, we knew a lot of people that show the love of God to us, and their testimony gives strength to us to go on. And here's the same, the same situation that we're feeling here. Listen, all the speakers and meeting you, that give strength to us to go on.
Yeah, I just want to add here, I don't know if you saw the previous picture. being a missionary doesn't mean that you're just, you know, working and working and working. God gives us so many opportunities, like getting to go to new places, meeting new people, new cultures. You know, this, I don't know if some of you might be familiar with the Nablet family in the picture. These are missionaries that we knew only from videos and from their music. And then we got to know them personally. So we got to meet a lot of very interesting people. And other fun things that we do, like our daughters in our mission trips, they've had a chance to, what are some of the things you've done? Like in nature, especially in nature, like rock climbing, zip line, what else?
Surf.
Even they received surfing lessons one day for free. We were just there, and there was this teacher, and then he offered them. So a lot of fun things happen out in the mission field, because like I said, God wants to give us the desires of our hearts, you know, and He knows that we need to have healthy recreation time, and He provides that for us.
So, this is the place where we live in now in Brazil. Is her father property, and he just allows us to use this for the mission. And then we started to do a project there, and we call Projeto Restaure and Project Restore, and we work with families. We just started in this place. We do family camps, and we receive a lot of families, and we have a program for the parents, for the kids, teach them how to trust in the Lord, how to be a missionary, how to put our family in contact with Jesus and be transformed and be restored and be a blessing to others too. And we have a lot of activities. We have a program for young people, teenagers, prepare them for the missions too. And we ask you that we pray for us in Brazil, because we have a lot of needs there. And the families need this message too. Usually there in the church, they don't talk about these issues that we present, like how can I say? To be separate to the Lord and to be willing to do missions. And all the family together. It's not the father doing the missionary work, not the mother. It's the father, the mother, and the children working together in the mission. And then keep them together for all the time.
Well, we're happy to be here. We've been in Maine since February. This is a temporary project for us, and we're going back in November. So we ask for your prayers. And we want to encourage you to look into becoming a missionary no matter what you choose in your lives. There are many mission schools you can attend. If you're already, near college, I would really recommend that you go to a mission school before you start your college degree. After high school, that's a good opportunity for you to have a vision. And then once you get to college, you know how to apply the knowledge that you received there in the mission field. You know how to develop your own little ministry or use your talents for God. So we really want to encourage you to pray and ask the Lord to guide your life. And I'm sure He will do that just the way that He did for us.